itself that can call itself, but it basically explores the entire set of child nodes possible. So then, if that is the case, remember that this particular explore function requires big O of E, but we'll come to that. But what would be the time complexity of DFS now? So this loop here that iterates through every vertex takes a different amount of time for every vertex, right? For example, and you can imagine why. So if we started off with D takes up a lot of time, but it covers this entire larger graph. But then when we check for A, it is going to take big O one time because it is already explored and visited, right? So it takes different amounts of time for every vertex. But if you think about it, the number of steps done for the step 1, that is calling for every vertex, takes big O V time. Now in step 2, where we are calling explore, remember that for every edge, we are examining that particular edge between X and Y, let's say 2 vertices, and we are examining that particular edge exactly twice. One is when we are exploring X, so we are examining Y here and then some other potential nodes, and once when we are exploring Y. So we are exactly doing it twice. That makes our entire time complexity for the overall explore algorithm E. And since we're exploring every edge a fixed number of times, that is twice, and we are doing it for every vertex one at a time, and we are maintaining this particular visited vector, the time complexity of this particular DFS algorithm is going to be big O of V plus E. Does everyone understand how we got to V plus E? Because for every vertex, we still need to iterate through the edges, but it is, since we are maintaining that vector, it basically becomes V plus E. Now, this is efficient, and as I said initially, that someone pointed out that whether this was a linear time algorithm. So do you guys agree that this is still a linear time algorithm in V and E? Is it linear or is it not? Because we have 2 vertices, if we had V times E, then that would not be a linear time algorithm. But in this particular scenario, it is a linear time algorithm, right? And this is efficient because if we remember that we were working on adjacency lists, when we were figuring out the space complexity, that basically meant that in order to traverse this entire adjacency list, we would require big O of space time, right? So if I want to traverse and examine every edge, we would require V plus E time. And now that is the same time complexity as that of DFS, right? So traversing an adjacency list basically has the same time complexity as performing a DFS on that particular graph. Okay. So now let's look at an example of a DFS algorithm, but with pre and post visit values. So I'll come to this example in a second, but before that, let's talk about connectivity in undirected graphs. So undirected graphs are connected between 2 vertices if there is a path between those 2 vertices. So we can then represent an undirected graph such as, a disjoint graph. Let's say that this is a disjoint graph that has 3 components, this larger one, this F, and this smaller one, right? So we can say that the set of vertices that are connected together, we can group them together. So A, B, E, I, and J are connected, C, D, G, H, K, L are connected, and F, which is not connected to anything, it's just a standalone vertex. So these are called, these smaller regions are called connected components. So we just saw how we can figure out all of the connected components in a graph, but we can also get more information from this DFS algorithm if we use those pre-visit and post-visit functions to figure something out about the nodes being visited and the order those nodes are being visited as well. Right. So what we can do is, let's talk about the pre-visit function. So the pre-visit function basically logs the time at which point a particular node is visited the first time, right? So remember that a node is being visited twice. Let me bring that. So here we had this particular example. Let's come back to this example again. Here A was being visited the second time, right? After D, we visited A, right? So the pre-visit time for A in this example, so the pre-visit time for A was right. Now we can basically say the pre-visit time of B was 3, for E was 4, for J was 5, I was 6, F was then 7, then C was 8, and then we came back to A, right? So here, this is how we basically assign the pre-visit times. That is the first time we access a particular node without even worrying about its child nodes, because remember that pre-visit is being called before we call recursive explores again. So pre-visit is basically logging the number, the first time that we are accessing a particular vertex. Okay. B doesn't pre-visit A. Okay, I might have explained this a bit wrong. I mean, I did it. Brian, could you explain a bit more what you, so pre-visit is just a number, Brian, that we are basically saying which node is accessed in what order. So B basically would be 3. Okay, let's look at it.
Yeah, but when you're at B, when you explore B, doesn't it go pre-visit A again?
No, because A is already visited, right? So we are not even exploring A anymore.
Okay, so A is only pre-visited the one time from D.
Yes, yes. You always pre-visit something once, and you always post-visit something once for a particular word.
I thought you were saying you pre-visited A when you were exploring C. So the graph's gone. So I think those were the right letters.
I understand there is some confusion. Let me go through this particular graph, and that would make it more clear.
Okay.
So here we have these graphs, and these are the ways where DFS has been searching this particular graph. Now, the first, you can notice that there are two numbers on top of those nodes here. The first number here is the pre-visit number, and the second number here is the post-visit number, right? So now notice carefully. So let's start with A. So A gets a pre-visit number of 1, right? Now then we have potential edges B and E, right? So when we have B and E, and I'll use, so when I talk about B and E, let's go for B. So then we have from A, we are going to B. Now B gets a pre-visit number of 2, right? Now we are done with B because there are no other edges from B. So we are done with B. So this now becomes the last time we are going to explore B. So B gets a post-visit number of 3, right? Because we are just saying the order of the visits that we are doing. So once we are done with B, then we go to the next edge of A, that is E. And then we say that the pre-visit number for E is now 4. And then from E, we go to I, where the pre-visit number is 5. Then from I, we go to J, where the pre-visit number is 6. And once this is done, we come back to E. And basically now E gets the post-visit number of 9, right? Because we are basically coming back from J to I, and then from I to E, right? We're jumping out of the recursive calls. So that is what we mean when we have pre-visit numbers and post-visit numbers. And once E is done, we come back to A, and finally A gets the post-visit number of 10 and a pre-visit number of 1. It is essentially adding, basically logging the counter for every recursive call that we are making, right? Let's look at a particular piece of code to make it more clear. So basically what we are trying to do, yes, Vasireddy, the numbering for pre-visit, okay, so let's look at the code once. So if you remember, We were pre-visiting before we are calling the explore function. So that was the head recursion part. And once we have explored all of those sub-child nodes, then we are, for that particular node, we are also setting the post visit. So we are doing it at the same time. Basically, we are maintaining the same global counter value for both pre-visit and post-visit. So basically what we are trying to do is note down two important events from this particular DFS search. That is the moment for first discovery and the moment for the final departure. The first discovery is called the pre-visit, and the final departure, the moment of the final departure, is called post-visit, right? So if we look at this example back again, here pre-visit is 2, but post-visit comes after we have covered all of those subnodes, subgraphs here, and then coming back, then post-visit of A becomes 9 or whatever, right? So the moment for the first discovery and the moment for the final departure. So what can we do? We can maintain two more vectors, that is one for pre and one for post visit, and that has the same length as our number of vertices. And let's maintain a counter. Let's say that's a clock. That has to be a global variable. Every time we call pre-visit, we are basically assigning the current counter to our current vertex V, and then we are incrementing the counter by 1. Every time we post visit, we again assign the value of that counter to that particular vertex location of the post vector, and then we increment the counter by 1, right? Now, basically, that is what we are going to do for every time we are accessing a particular vertex. And then before starting up exploring its child nodes, I'm going to assign the counter to my pre-visit counter. And every time we are returning after exploration, we are going to assign the counter to the post-visit counter. Does that make sense about what the pre-visit values and post-visit values are? Or do you want me to go back to this example and explain again? Okay, so let me ask you a question. Tell me why the pre-visit counter for C here in this example is 11 and post-visit is 22. Anyone? Why is it 11? After the first run was done, they moved on to C, and when they moved on to C, the current counter value was 10 because that is the post visit value for A, right? So then the first time we discovered C, we had the number 11, and once we have discovered all of the subgraphs after C, then after we did that, the last time we actually explored C and we are done with C was number 22. Exactly, you're correct. Okay. Okay, so for any nodes U and V, that there are two intervals, right? One is pre of U and post of U, and for V itself, we have pre of V and post of V.